Hello there and welcome once again to The Verdict. Mick Cornett with Kent Myers. We're here every week meeting interesting people and dealing with topical issues, and this time we welcome back an old friend.
Indeed. We are welcoming back Patrice Douglas to our show, the Corporation Commissioner. She's been on once before. We're going to find out what's going on at the Commission, how she's getting along in her service, and what the plans might be for activities that might address more specifically what kind of damage is done to infrastructure when we have ice storms, windstorms, tornadoes, and the like. But we're going to talk about a lot of other things as well.
You know, the Corporation Commission deals with a lot of important stuff.
And it's not all necessarily related to each other. They've got to juggle a lot of things.
We'll learn all about that today on The Verdict.
A doctorate in American Indian Studies and Comparative Cultural and Literary Studies. I focus on Native American arts and especially representations of American Indians. My name is Tracy Morris, and I am an educator, a scholar, and a business owner, and I am Chickasaw. I'm extremely interested in how Natives have been represented in the media and how we represent ourselves in the media. We have a unique opportunity right now with broadband and with new media. It's an open playing field. I do believe that it gives us a power to represent ourselves and a power to change our own destiny. Anybody with a cell phone, with a good phone, and an idea and a computer can go out and make a movie. For the first time, we can represent ourselves. We can tell our own stories, and to be seen for who we are now, not the victims of the past, I think is tremendously exciting. That's where my work lies.
Welcome back to the set of The Verdict. Mick Cornett with Kent Myers, and Kent's going to introduce today's guest.
We're pleased to welcome back to the set of The Verdict, as Mick indicated, the Honorable Patrice Douglas. This is her second appearance on the show. She did her undergraduate work at Oklahoma Christian University, and she's got a youngster starting at Oklahoma Christian this fall. She did her law work at the University of Oklahoma. She's had a nice mix of private law practice, family business, banking experience, and in 2009 she was elected as mayor of the city of Edmond. In 2011, Governor Fallon appointed her to fulfill an unexpired term of Jeff Cloud on the Oklahoma Corporation Commission, and since that time she has been serving on the Corporation Commission. This is her second appearance. Welcome back.
Thank you. It's good to be here, Kent.
Glad
Thanks
to have
for letting
you.
me come.
All right, give us a lowdown on the Corporation Commission. What's at the top of the docket these days?
Well, you know, we've always got oil and gas things on the docket. I voted, I think this morning, 32 times, which was a really slow day on our oil and gas docket, but we vote every day on oil and gas matters. We have a lot of issues facing the Commission right now, because what most people don't understand is that the Commission affects about 2/3 of Oklahoma's economy. So about 2/3 of the money that comes into the general revenue in Oklahoma is somehow touched by the Corporation Commission. So we deal with phones, telecom, we deal with utilities, we deal with pipelines, we regulate the state's trucking industry, we regulate some of the state's interest in railroads. So we have a wide swath of duties.
Have you ever asked yourself, or have you ever thought about why it is that a full term on the Corporation Commission, which is a statewide office, is 6 years, and there's, I don't think, any other office in the state of Oklahoma under our Constitution that carries a 6-year term. Why is it that the Corporation Commission member is expected or entitled to serve 6 years?
I think there's a couple of reasons. First, because it's such a technical job. It's got such a huge learning curve. You have so many things that you have to know and understand and work with on a daily basis. So it takes a little while to learn. And secondly, since there's 3 commissioners, I think the folks who wrote the Oklahoma Constitution wanted each commissioner, they wanted a commissioner to be up for election every 2 years. And because you have 3 commissioners, that means a 6-year term. So normally, on years where you don't have an appointee like me, you have a commissioner on the ballot every 2 years.
Having a body of 3, how are you affected by the Open Meetings Act?
We can't talk to each other. 2 of us can't meet because it would be considered a meeting if we're talking about commission business. So we're really careful about that. We are very cautious about even speaking to each other in the hall. We say hello and how's your family, and that's about as far as it goes. So much like county commissioners, who I think have the same issue, when you have a board of 3, it really makes it difficult to communicate.
All right, let's talk about one issue that I guess has been on my mind for 2 or 3 years now, because after we had the big ice storm, I don't remember how long ago that was, 3,
Right.
4, 5 years ago.
Right.
There was a lot of chatter at the time about why don't we bury all the utility lines?
Right.
Don't people understand the cost of business that is affected when electricity's out and how people are inconvenienced, and surely it wouldn't cost that much, and the state of Oklahoma should somehow find a way to pay for it. Okay, so that winds up on the Corporation Commission. If that's a good idea, it's going to have to go through the Corporation Commission.
It does.
Yeah, you probably spend a lot more time thinking about that than the average person. So give us your thoughts.
Well, I thought about it first when I was a mayor. When I was the mayor of Edmond, folks would always call me if they had a power outage saying, why aren't these lines under the ground? Why aren't they under the ground? And then you would get a lot of phone calls when you were a mayor about the fact that they're trimming my trees. And folks don't like their trees trimmed, but the bottom line is trimming trees actually helps us not have power outages. When there was a recent study, it was done in 2012 by the Edison Electric Institute. What they said is that it would raise your bill 5 to 10 times to underground all the lines in America. So it's very costly. And what they found after Hurricane Sandy is that you have flooding issues and you have issues with lines being underground. They're more costly to repair, and they actually take longer to repair the lines that are under the ground versus the lines that are over the ground. So there are some situations where it's just not smart. It just doesn't work. In Oklahoma, what we know, there was a study done 5 or 6 years ago, and it tells us it would cost about $30 billion to underground lines in Oklahoma. So to me and you, Kent, what that means is $80 to $260 on our bills for a year for the next 30 years. So it's extremely costly. So in response to that, what electric utilities are doing is, as new developments come online, whether they're business developments or residential developments, they are taking a real hard look at whether it should be underground or overhead lines. And in many instances, especially in residential areas that are not prone to flooding, they're going to go ahead and underground those lines, because as they build out, it's a smart thing to do. And then you don't have to have people worrying about their trees getting cut later on.
Are there communities or states around the country, or are there communities around the world that have gone in, retrofitted, and buried all the lines in a built-out community?
There were some in the area that Hurricane Sandy hit, and that's one of the reasons that we know some of the issues that come about because of undergrounding lines. So there are some communities who have done that, but generally what we find is that consumers don't want to pay the cost of that, and I, as a consumer, don't want to pay the cost of that. So I want my utility company to be smart and to be prudent with my dollars, and I want them to get my power back online when it goes off, and I want them to do it quickly, but I'm not sure I want to pay 10 times what my electric bill is right now to get that done.
And let them trim the trees if they want.
Let them trim them. We call it vegetation rehabilitation, I
Oh,
think is what we call it,
nice.
instead of tree trimming. We have another word, we have another phrase for it, but it's been an interesting issue. In Tulsa, they made a real move towards undergrounding lines about 6 or 7 years ago, and have just come to the conclusion that it was not cost efficient.
Do the residential developers of new additions have a kind of a uniform position on whether it ought to be underground or not?
You know, Kent, I don't know that, but I do know that most of the new developments that are coming in, especially in the metropolitan areas, are being undergrounded. As they build a new housing development or a new commercial development, they underground it. But what you have to remember is that even though you underground the lines going to those houses, somewhere that comes up and is above ground. So it's always vulnerable if you get the right wind or the right rain or the right ice in a particular place. It's going to be vulnerable whether it's above ground or whether it's underground.
Let's go ahead and take a break here, and when we come back, I want to talk about the potential addition of a new area code in the state of Oklahoma. I remember Tulsa doing that
Hot
not
topic.
too long ago, and now there's talk Central Oklahoma might
Hot
need
topic.
that. So we'll take a break and come back and visit with Corporation Commissioner Patrice Douglas.
It's a North American energy revolution. We're the fastest growing source of new oil and natural gas supplies in the world.
The shift to North American energy will create approximately 3 million jobs.
All that money we've been sending overseas, $400 billion a year. Imagine that staying in our economy. It's a game changer.
Real energy independence starts now, and it starts with Oklahoma.
When you have something important to communicate, it becomes clear that there's a lot of competition for your audience's attention. So how can your message stand out and actually resonate with your audience? Legal Graphics has the answers. The team at Legal Graphics will work with you to plan, design, and even test your presentation to ensure your message will be heard and remembered. Call Legal Graphics today to schedule an appointment. The readiness is all.
Welcome back to the set of the verdict. Mick Cornett with Kent Myers and our guest, Corporation Commissioner Patrice Douglas. I remember a few years back, the Tulsa area needed to add an area code, and now there is talk that Oklahoma City might, in the next few years, need to consider that same thing. What's causing this proliferation of new telephone numbers?
Well, probably 2 or 3 things are causing it. First, the good news is Oklahoma City's growing. So as you grow, people need phones and businesses need phones. So when a community is successful, it needs new phone lines. And there's only a finite number of phones that can attach to every area code. So we all don't like it. We want to put it off as long as we can, but when you've got a growing city, you will have that need someday. Somehow you'll have that need. A couple of things are really causing that to be pushed forward. It's causing the time in Oklahoma City to accelerate. And one of the things is that so many people have data lines now. You have an iPad, you have an iPhone, you have your computer at home, you have networks. A lot of times employers will have their employees have iPads and computers. So think about all those data lines. That's increasing the need for an area code because those attach somehow to a phone number. You don't think about it when you get on your iPad or when you get on your iPhone, but somehow that attaches to a phone number. So that's one thing that's increasing it. Another thing that's increasing it, and it frankly really upsets me when I think about it, but it's the Obama phones. It's those phones that you see on the side of the road that somebody's saying free cell phone service, come sign up. And so in Oklahoma, we've had a real problem with that. At the commission, we are wrestling with that issue. We have slowed the use of those Obama phones, the fraudulent, I shouldn't say the use, I should say the fraud and abuse of that system, which I find to be just amazing. And so we are putting some rules in place that slow down getting those phones. And
How many phones are we talking about here?
about 200,000 phones in the 405 area code.
My gosh.
So a lot of phone numbers being taken up by those phones, and what happens is that the companies aren't checking and making sure that the folks are eligible and only have one. You're only allowed to have one of those phones per household, and we're finding instances of fraud and abuse where people have lied and gotten the phones and where phone companies haven't checked, and you'll find somebody with 6 or 7 of those phones. And so we need to slow that down. And at the Commission, that's been one of the things that's at the forefront of our mind. We understand what a hassle a new area code would be. We understand the problem, and we want to work with cities as they have these new area codes come in, especially if it's for a good reason, like Oklahoma City has. But we want to slow down the fraud and abuse in a system that could increase and move us forward to that 405.
But isn't the problem with the new area code, just to kind of be the devil's advocate a little bit, and you can turn off my mic if you want to, a short-term problem? I mean, you start out being used to 405, and all of a sudden you now have 405 and hypothetically 111. Mm-hmm. It's confusing for a while, but eventually you know whether your area code is 111 or it's 405, and you get used to it and you adapt to it. There are lots of cities around the country, I expect, the bigger ones, that have more than one area code.
There are.
And so isn't this a problem that'll work itself out?
It does work itself out, but in the meantime, it really gets people upset and concerned because they, some of the emails I get are things like, well, will my next door neighbor be 405 or whatever the new area code is? And the answer is, depending on how this process is accomplished, it can be accomplished in a number of different ways, but the answer is maybe.
Yeah.
And so it's confusing to people. Small businesses don't like to have to go in and reprint everything, reprogram everything. You reprogram everything from fax machines to your network, and so folks don't like it, and it is a problem for a while. Folks do get used to it, and again, we know it's inevitable, but we want it to be for the right reasons.
Yeah.
We want it to be because of economic development and growth and the booming greater Oklahoma City metro, which of course includes Edmond. So,
what can Oklahoma City's future issue learn from Tulsa's past experience?
I think you have to let folks know ahead of time. We have to work with them. We have to give folks the opportunity to speak and to voice their concerns. We have to educate people so they understand what the transition will be, the time frame in which it will take place, and truly the more information they have, the less frustrated they're going to be. There were town halls held all over Tulsa. I'm sure when this begins to happen in Oklahoma City, the same thing will happen, so that the commission and the commission staff can answer questions that 405 residents have. Mm-hmm. So we will, it needs to be rolled out slowly, and it needs to give people a chance to understand.
In Tulsa, how did it work? Is it geographic, or as new numbers were put into the system, did they get the new area code? How did it work? It was the new numbers.
It was called an overlay in Tulsa, and so the new area code overlaid the geographical area where the 918 was. So as new numbers came on, you would get a new area code and a number to match that.
Which is different from the 580
right.
area code that was added to the state a few years back.
Right. And so there's a lot of possibilities of how you do that. And I think what the commission will do when this issue comes in front of them is we'll really look at the way that best suits Oklahoma and the growth of Oklahoma, at the same time recognizing that we want to minimize the impact on the folks who live here and who it will be a change for.
So when is this going to come to Oklahoma City?
Well, we've put it off. It's moved. It was scheduled to be in serious discussions in December, and we've been able to move it off because I think we were able to slow the growth of these Obama phones. So we were able to slow the growth through some rules that the commission enacted, and frankly just standing up and saying we're not going to tolerate this behavior. So we were able to slow it. So it looks like it would be not coming to the commission until at least 2014 at this point.
Would you just kind of briefly and in a general way discuss the areas that the Corporation Commission regulates? We know you regulate oil and gas and telephone system or utilities, electric and telephone and the like. What else do you do?
We regulate the trucking industry in Oklahoma. So any truck that drives on an Oklahoma highway is registered through the Corporation Commission. 200,000 licenses, permits issued last year from the Commission. So that's one of our major functions. Utilities, phone companies, we have 360 registered telecom providers in Oklahoma. So we regulate 360 companies there. We also regulate pipeline safety. So we don't regulate where a pipeline goes, but we regulate, we make sure that it stays safe for Oklahoma's land, water, and surface and air. So we regulate that. We have odds and ends that come to the Commission. We regulate wrecker services. We regulate the insurance and the passenger limits on taxi cabs. We regulate the crossings of railroads. So while we don't own the railroads, we do regulate what crossings are opened and closed. We regulate just...
Seems like when I get gas, I'll see a sticker on the
name.
pump that says regulated by.
My son took a picture of that. He's 18, and he said, "Surely if you are such a big deal, your name's on the gas pump, you can lower the gas prices for me, Mom." It didn't work. No, we make sure when you buy a gallon at the pump that you actually get a gallon. So that's one of our major functions as well.
Well, just in general terms, what area of those broad responsibilities takes most of your time? At least in the last 6 months, we'll say.
In the last 6 months, I'd say telecom and utilities have taken a lot of time because we've had big rate cases coming in front of us, and we've been dealing with some of the issues on Lifeline phones, the Obama phones. So we've been dealing with those. We see oil and gas every single day. So we vote every single day on those matters. Last year issued over 30,000 orders in the oil and gas field. So clearly not a small chunk, but probably about a quarter of our time is spent on oil and gas.
Railroad crossings, what type of issues would come across your desk?
Whether or not a city had approved a railroad crossing to be closed, whether it needed to be upgraded to be safer. We really focus on the safety issues, and we work with the railroad companies to make sure that when they advise that they want to close a crossing, that they've dealt with the city, that they've worked with the mayors and the council, that the city indeed wants that crossing closed, that what they're proposing will indeed make it safer.
Do you all deal with quiet zones? In other words, can you tell the railroads they can't use their horn or they have to use their horn?
We do not deal with the quiet zones.
Okay.
We do not. We can't regulate that piece of their enterprise.
All right. And where is the offices of the Corporation Commission?
We're right across the street from the state capitol in the Jim Thorpe building. So we're right across the street, and if they need us across the street, which they often do, they pull us in.
All right.
Three commissioners, how many employees?
We have about 450 employees all around the state because we have oil and gas inspectors that are in the field all the time.
We'll give some website information in our final segment. But Patrice Douglas, thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you for letting me. Thanks for letting me be here, Mayor.
Well, thanks for your service.
Sure, thank you.
Kent and I'll have a final word when we get back.
The good life comes naturally to Tulsa, where nature's beauty is matched with an eye for aesthetics. A legacy of neighborhoods graced with lawns and landscaping and handsome homes. A place that seems to have patented an ideal lifestyle. Bank First is loyal to the quality of life Tulsa assures its citizens, to the priority placed on education, culture, and growth. Loyal to builders who transform raw land into residential charm. Developers who see opportunity and add vitality to Tulsa's economy. Bank First serves both enterprise and private lives that need a loyal partner. It's how we help nurture this city's very good life. Bank first. Loyal to Oklahoma. Loyal to you.
All children deserve a life of hope and love, but sometimes they experience a life of pain, neglect, and abuse.
When that happens, each child deserves all the quality assistance and representation that can be offered in our legal system. For more information, call 23-CHILD.
Oklahoma Lawyers for Children, helping to bring hope and love back to the lives of abused children.
You will always be mom and dad to me.
We are a very conservative family, and we believe in old-fashioned family values. We have a loving home there, and we love kids, and we had 5, 6 of our own, and but had no idea we were going to go into adoption, but it's been very gratifying.
You will always be mom and dad to me.
The Journal-Record is pleased to be a sponsor of The Verdict. The Journal-Record, since 1903, the best source of Oklahoma business news and legal information.
And for almost 30 years, Oklahoma political, government, and business leaders have turned to the McCarville Report for accurate, reliable, inside information. Visit the McCarville Report online.
Welcome back to the set of The Verdict. Nick Cornett and Kent Myers. We're wrapping up the show with Corporation Commissioner Patrice Douglas.
I am taken by the fact of the broad responsibility the Corporation Commission has and how our founding fathers, I guess, when they drafted the Constitution at the very beginning, made that the only office in the state that has a 6-year term rather than a 4-year or something less. And it does recognize, I doubt that they were thinking about area codes and telecommunications and the like in 1907, but it certainly was wise to give the Corporation Commission longer terms because they got a lot to do.
And if you'd like more information on what they do, you can go to their website. It's at OCC, which stands for the Oklahoma Corporation Commission, .state.ok.us, occ.state.ok.us. And we have a website. The website's called theverdict.tv. And if you have an idea for a show or a subject that you'd like to see us discuss on this show, you can go to theverdict.tv and tell us about it. We'll see you next week.